All right, looks like it is going. All right. Looks like we are live. My apologies, gentlemen. We are live, it appears. Looks like we are good to go. So good evening and thank you for joining tonight's session. It is my pleasure to introduce Delegate C.T. Wilson, who serves as Speaker Jones's designee to the commission and is the current chair of the House Economic Matters Committee. He will be serving as our host for this evening's meeting. Chair Wilson. You're still muted, sir.
Thank you very much. I apologize. Thank you for having today and everybody for joining in. Unfortunately, two of our commission members are unable to join us. U.S. Senator and Commission Chair Angela Alsbrooks and former Attorney General Brian Frosch. With me this evening are Commissioner members Senate President Bill Ferguson and Mayor of Cumberland Ray Morris. Again, thank you for joining us to another listening session regarding the redistricting in Maryland. It's important to remember in this meeting, as in all of our meetings, we're here for that exactly, a listening session. Our main job at this juncture is to hear input from Marylanders in their positions regarding any potential redistricting. Our time this evening will be Friday, an opportunity to hear from you. The response in these sessions is basically higher than we even expected, so we have to leave as much time as possible to hear the input. With that, I'd like to turn it back over to our facilitators for some quick housekeeping and items before we begin. Thank you.
Thank you. So as our chair suggested, we are going to start momentarily, but there are a couple of housekeeping items to go over for everyone, just so you know how this evening's session will work, so that you understand how you're going to be speaking tonight and in what turn and how that's going to work. One of the most important things is that you make sure that your name on the attendees section where you have registered, what your name is identifying as, is what you registered with. So if you registered under the name Elizabeth Smith, but you joined from a different computer and it says John Smith, then we won't know that that is you. So please make sure that your name is listed properly under your attendee name. Each speaker will be elevated to an attendee, from the attendee to a panelist role. That's why that is so important, to make sure your name is correct. We will say your name and indicate that we are moving you to a panelist role when your time comes. Once that happens, you will see a pop-up on your screen to accept. The box will indicate the host would like to promote you to become a panelist. When the box appears on your screen, please click Join as Panelist. There'll then be a little bit of a lag until you go live. And once you start speaking, we will then start your time at that time. Please be sure to unmute your microphone. It's up to you as to whether or not you want to be on camera. If you're having technical difficulties, once you get that link to join as a panelist, we'll wait a few seconds, but if it's clear that things aren't working, we'll simply move to the next speaker and then come back to you if time allows. So please just continue to try to accept that link. And when you go on, if someone else is already speaking, we'll just get to you then. If there still continues to be a problem, then we'll just have you speak at a future meeting. When your 3 minutes is up, you will be moved back to an attendee role where you won't be able to speak live and you will not be on camera. We will have a very strict policy on this. So even if you're still talking at 3 minutes, that we will move you back to the attendee role. You're going to notice that there is a timer in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. That timer will show you how much time is left. And at the end, there will be a beep to let you know that you're about to be moved back over. If you have any questions, or if you have additional testimony to provide after you're moved back to the attendee section, please feel free to send additional testimony or those questions to the email at grac@maryland.gov. We've had an overwhelming response to the registration of the prior meeting and this meeting. Unfortunately, that means that it is more than likely that once again, we will not be able to get to all of those who registered to speak tonight. Based on our time allotment this evening, we anticipate being able to hear from about 30 to 40 registered speakers. If you registered to provide testimony but are not called, we ask that you register for the December 5th meeting. The link for that will be live tomorrow. Or you can feel free to simply send written testimony to the commission through the email that I just provided, and that is also on our website. We are going to do our best to call those who are carried over from one meeting to a next, to call those as early in the meeting as possible. Please remember that this is a listening session. It's meant to serve as a way for the commission to hear what Marylanders have to say. We want to hear your thoughts and concerns. However, any aggressive or inappropriate behavior or foul language will result in immediate removal from the meeting. Once you're moved back, you are still welcome to observe the remainder of the meeting. As you're being moved back from a panelist to the attendee section, you may see a spinning wheel. Please don't click any buttons. You're just simply being moved back, and there is a little bit of a lag. At the same time, the next person on the list will be elevated. We also will do our best to say who the next few speakers will be. If we are able to do that, we will, so that people know when their time is coming up to get prepared to speak. The commission will be focused on listening. So because of that, the chat and raised hand features of the Zoom platform have been disabled for this meeting. A recording of the proceedings from tonight will be posted to the Redistricting website as soon as possible, probably tomorrow morning. With that, let's begin our testimony. We will now hear from our first speaker, and that is Donna Sauerberger. Donna, I am going to be, Donna was here. Here she is. Donna, I'm promoting you to a panelist. Please be sure to unmute.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
My name is My name is Donna Sauerberger. I'm registered as an unaffiliated voter in Anne Arundel County, and I'm a member of the Executive Committee of Independent Voters of Maryland, urging you not to redistrict. I do share Governor Moore's deep concern about our democracy. It seems like almost every week our current presidential administration does something that is such a threat to democracy that it sets my hair on fire. I'm really frightened that I may see the end of our democracy in my own lifetime. One essential aspect of democracy is having a government where every citizen has a voice, with legislators representing the will of the people. That's what a true democracy is. So I was heartened to hear Senator Alsobrooks say, she quoted, "Maryland deserves a fair map that represents the will of the people." Any election structure that suppresses the voices of certain citizens based on their membership, or in my case, lack of membership in certain political parties, is completely contrary to the notion of representing the will of the people. So a redistricting plan whose purpose is to determine how many candidates of which party will be selected to represent the people before the people even have a chance to vote, that's voter suppression. It threatens our very democracy. And, just because the parties in some states choose to subvert the democratic process by suppressing their voters' voices to rig the election in their favor does not mean that the way that we can defend democracy is to also suppress the voices of some of our citizens here in Maryland. So I applaud Senators Bill Ferguson and Cheryl Kagan, who stood up to speak in defense of our democracy and letting the people choose who they want to represent them. And while I'm here, another example of voter suppression in Maryland that I was very surprised and happy to hear Michelle Whitaker from Rank the Vote mention at the hearing last week is our primary election system that does not allow almost 1 million of us to vote unless we're willing to affiliate with an organization that we don't align with. You know, in most of our districts, the elections are decided in the primary. So in those districts, citizens like myself, we have no voice in who will represent us. So I urge you to please protect our democracy by having all voices be heard and ending voter suppression, such as gerrymandering and closed primaries, so that every voice can be heard and we can have a government that truly represents the will of the people. That's the only way that our democracy will prevail. Thank you.
Thank you.
I will now be promoting our next speaker to panelists, which is Tori Snow. When you receive the invite, please be sure to accept and join and unmute your microphone.
The music you just heard is the sound that will play when the 3 minutes is up.
I've sent the panelists an invite, but I do not see that they've accepted it yet.
We will give another moment. The next speaker after, I believe it was Tori Snow that you were calling.
Yes.
The next speaker after Tori Snow, looks like we will go ahead and move to that speaker, is John Myrick. Mr. Myrick, I've promoted you to a panelist. Please accept and unmute.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is John Myrick. I am a registered Republican voter here in Maryland, and I am also a candidate for governor of the state of Maryland. I wanted to address this issue of redistricting from the perspective that Marylanders have for too long been gerrymandered into the districts that we currently have. For decades, Maryland Democrat supermajority has worked to gerrymander our congressional districts in order to eliminate any Republican representation. Nearly a full third of Maryland's registered voters are registered as Republicans, yet there is only currently one Republican district in the entire state, that is District 1, over on the Eastern Shore. The current governor's efforts to further gerrymander Republicans out of any representation is, in fact, a true and existential threat to our democracy. Representation is supposed to be based upon fairness. That is what our forefathers envisioned and what logic and common sense demands. How other states choose to draw their congressional boundaries is up to the voters of those states and has absolutely nothing to do with fair representation here in Maryland. Our governor's concerns about how Texas, California, or North Carolina draw their maps shows that he has no concern for Marylanders. Disenfranchising 1/3 of Maryland voters cannot be tolerated. I commend Senator Ferguson for your previous comments regarding redistricting efforts in this process. Your realization that the Maryland courts will surely intervene in any such effort, and that the court's decision will most likely result in congressional district map that they provide being far more favorable for Republican representation than is now currently found, shows a current and keen understanding of the situation, an understanding that our governor clearly lacks. I call upon you as members of this commission and upon every Marylander to reject the efforts of gerrymandering. We have a process for redistricting. It's supposed to take place after each and every census every 10 years. This effort to mid-district or mid-term redistrict is nothing more than political theater and will only serve to disenfranchise and harm Maryland's democracy. I urge you all to take that into consideration when you're making these decisions. And I appreciate your time and attention in this matter this evening.
Thank you.
All right, our next speaker, we have Lisa Fuller. I am promoting Lisa Fuller to a panelist. Please accept the invite to join and be sure to unmute your microphone. Following Lisa Fuller, we have Melanie Combs-Dyer, Linda Cohn, Heather Olson, and Heather Richards.
Lisa, please be sure to unmute.
Hi, my camera isn't coming on, not sure why. Hold on. Hi, I am Lisa Fuller. I am in District 15 as a Democrat, and I wear many hats. Thank you all for having me. I wear many hats. I am the second vice president of the Montgomery County Women's Democratic Club, and I am also their communications chair. I founded with a friend Indivisible MoCo Women, and we have about 2,200 members in our group. And I am a member of the Maryland Indivisible Coalition, which is represented by 49 counties in our state. But today, I am Lisa Fuller. I'm speaking for myself. I have a quick story to share with you. Growing up, I would sit with my dad every 4 years and watch the National Convention. I was very excited to watch the states hold their placard and yell out their tallies when it was their turn to vote. One year, Maryland was skipped, and they agreed to be skipped. And I was indignant. I said to my father, why would Maryland be skipped? That's not fair. And he said, well, they're too small to make a difference in putting somebody over to receive the number of votes they needed for the to be elected. And I didn't think that was fair. I felt that they should continue going alphabetically, and it wasn't fair that Maryland was too small to participate that way. But now we are a trifecta state. We have a governor, and both of our houses in Annapolis are Democratic, and we are mighty, and we are strong, and we have thousands and thousands of people involved in this democracy and in this decision. So I am pretty new to this process. I would call myself a late bloomer. I go around and I collect as much information as I can to try to become informed and have an informed decision about how I feel about things. I wrote to every Montgomery County senator and told them my opinion that I felt we should call a special session so that we can resolve this issue. And one senator wrote me back and one senator called me back. I have ambushed at a few events, several of the senators who I know, and I asked questions, I told them my opinion, and I could not get a straight answer out of anyone. And so I come to you saying that I really believe in order to get a straight answer and to hear how people think, really believe what we should do, we need to have a special session called so that people can go on the record and someone like me can understand how we're going to move forward. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you. It looks like Tori Snow has rejoined. I'm going to attempt to promote Tori to a panelist. Okay, wonderful. You're ready to go.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. We can hear you.
Excellent. My name is Tori Snow. I am in Anne Arundel County, and I am speaking to voice my strong opposition to this mid-census redistricting plan. As has been previously stated, numerously stated, this effort is a catastrophic waste of time and resources. I will point out that this is the second listening session in a row in which the chair of the commission did not bother to show up or listen. And in this session, it appears that 3 of the appointed members of the commission didn't bother to show up. To me, this just says that this is clearly not a priority, nor should it be. There are many issues facing the state of Maryland, including a $1.4 billion deficit, a key bridge reconstruction that is in a complete chaos right now. And right now, members of our Senate, members of our House of Delegates are wasting an inordinate amount of time on what is ultimately a national political issue that Maryland has little to no input on. the explicit desire and stated desire of our governor to intentionally alienate every single Republican voter in the state of Maryland is as big as an attack on democracy as anyone could potentially conceive of. And I do believe that wiser heads should prevail, that we shouldn't move forward with this. This is something that is clearly partisan. And even for people that claim to be in support of democracy and we have to protect democracy, this should be offensive to anyone that believes that people should have a representative voice. As many people have pointed out, Maryland has a 2-to-1 ratio as it comes to Democrats and Republicans, and we haven't even spoken about the independents and unaffiliated voters, of which I am numbered, that would be clearly left out of the process if we move to an 8-0 map. So I will unequivocally and emphatically discourage any efforts to move forward with this. My recommendation would be that the remaining members of the commission take the example of the chair and other members and not bother to show up to these meetings at all, because it's everybody's waste of time. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Melanie Combs-Dyer. I am promoting you to a panelist. Please be sure to unmute your microphone. We're ready when you are.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Melanie Combs-Dyer. I'm a registered unaffiliated voter because I don't agree with all the Republican positions and I don't agree with all the Democratic positions. I'm also the executive director of Let Us Vote Maryland, which advocates for open primaries in Maryland and the addition of independents on state and local boards of election. In the 1st Congressional District where I live, there are over 123,000 registered unaffiliated voters. That's 22% of the voters. As you consider further redistricting for partisan advantage, I'm wondering how you will account for the independent voters when you draw the lines. As districts become increasingly gerrymandered for partisan reasons, the primaries become the only election that really matters. The general election is not competitive. That's the whole goal of partisan redistricting. There are close to 1 million unaffiliated voters in Maryland, and we're barred from voting in primary elections. That means we can't cast a meaningful vote for our representative. As the commission considers the question of redistricting, please consider the question of independent voting rights. At the heart of every election should be the participation of all voters. No Marylander should be forced to join a political party just to be able to vote in a public election. I want the commission to consider that if they move forward with partisan redistricting, they are further disenfranchising independent voters. One way the commission could mitigate against this would be to recommend that the General Assembly open primaries to unaffiliated voters and allow them to choose an unaffiliated ballot style, a ballot that would contain the names that appear on all other ballot styles. To see a copy of a sample unaffiliated ballot style and draft legislation, go to www.letusvotemd.org/nonpartisan-ballot. Thank you for having this listening session today. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is going to be Linda Cohn. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that. I have promoted you to a panelist. Please accept and unmute. Our next speakers are Heather Olson, Heather Richards, Stephen Pinson, and Rion Dennis.
Great. Okay. Thank you. My name is Linda Cohn. I am president of the League of Women Voters of Maryland, and I thank you for allowing me to be here today to talk to this commission. The League of Women Voters of Maryland is the state's premier voting rights organization, supporting the right of all eligible citizens to fully participate in democracy, including through their vote. We oppose mid-cycle redistricting and do not believe it should be pursued, but if it is done, it should be conducted with maximum transparency, adequate time for community input, and a priority on the needs of Marylanders. The League of Maryland opposes mid-cycle redistricting because maps are being drawn without new census data and to favor one party. This distorts fair representation and creates confusion for both voters and candidates. In a time when there are already too many voices expressing distrust in the voting system, mid-cycle redistricting for partisan advantage will lead to an even greater loss of confidence in the system and the officials elected through it. It does not lead to fair maps. It takes away the power of voters. If there is a decision to proceed, we believe the process needs to be transparent and community-driven. While this commission has experienced and well-respected people sitting on it, it is not independent, nor is it transparent. We would expect to see widely announced meetings, agenda and material shared, and a clear plan of work and timeline delineated. We believe the process should be community-driven with input gathered from citizens at large, public interest groups, members of minority groups, and voters in the potentially affected areas. Elections rely on citizen participation. As a nonpartisan organization, the League spends an enormous amount of our volunteers' time registering voters across the state and encouraging them to cast their ballots. Our aspirational goal is to get 100% turnout at elections. But when politicians choose their voters instead of voters choosing their leaders, we have weakened what citizen participation means and what a vote means. Thank you very much for letting the League speak to you today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, being promoted to a panelist, is Heather Olson. Please accept the invite and be sure to unmute your microphone. I have sent the invite. There we go. Okay. And you may proceed when ready.
Afternoon. You hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I live in Prince George's County. I'm speaking only for myself. I have served as a chief election judge in the county. In that capacity, I have seen that after redistricting, there is always a good deal of voter confusion as voters arrive at their polling place only to find that the elected official whose record they are familiar with is no longer on their ballot, and they have to choose between unfamiliar candidates. Worse, they often discover that their polling place has changed, and they may not have allowed sufficient time to get to the new polling place, which can have the effect of disenfranchising them. This problem is made worse when districts are gerrymandered, since as a result, often a voter's polling place is not the polling place closest to their home. The need to reapportion districts based on population after the decennial census makes some degree of this confusion unavoidable, but we have not just taken a census and you are not contemplating redistricting in order to account for population shifts. So there's no good reason to confuse and disenfranchise voters in this way. Some previously argued that the reprehensible decisions of other states to engage in mid-cycle partisan gerrymandering justifies Maryland doing the same. In response, I will quote what my late mother frequently told me when I was growing up: two wrongs do not make a right. Courts are rejecting what other states are doing, and they may do the same here. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. I'm now promoting Rion Dennis, Heather Richards, and Stephen Pinson. I do not have in the list. If you are on, I ask that you make sure that you change your name in the attendees section to reflect what you've registered with.
Hi, I'm Ryan Dennis. I live in Montgomery County, and I'm speaking on behalf of myself. We've all seen what the president has been calling for other states to change their redistricting, and I think Maryland should do the same in order to combat that. We have heard a lot about Maryland voters being disenfranchised. I think the entire state will be disenfranchised if the Republicans continue on their lawlessness at the federal level. Right now, after the Supreme Court has basically left Congress as the only entity that can hold the president accountable, I think Maryland citizens want their government to step up and be that line of defense. Thousands of federal workers have lost their jobs in this area. We've seen cuts all around, very unlawfully done. And I think unless we can fight back as the Republicans try and gerrymander other states and to keep their majority, unless Maryland steps up and other blue states do the same, all of Marylanders will be disenfranchised. And so I 100% support doing redistricting to try and match what is going on in other states that the president is calling for. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker I will be promoting to panelists is Teresa Meyer. Please accept and be sure your microphone is unmuted. Following this speaker, we have Laura Gilchrist, Dawn Pop, Joseph Gilday, and Krish Vig Naraja. Teresa, your microphone is still muted.
Sorry about that. So yeah, my name is Teresa Meyer. Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Great. Yeah, I also live in Montgomery County, and I'm a registered independent. And I used to be a Democrat, but in the last few years, I think the parties are just getting farther and farther to the extremes where there's very little compromise being done anymore. So I wanted to register as an independent to kind of show that I really to sort of show how I'm more of a moderate, and I think the reason things don't get done is because of that. There's not enough moderates anymore. The other thing I wanted to say was, if you do the redistricting, I'm curious as to how the independents will be included in that. And, you know, the fact that we can't vote in the primaries is a problem for me. I think you're missing quite a few people in the state by doing that. And again, it forces us little choice in who we elect in the primaries. So can you answer the question about the redistricting and independence?
Again, ma'am, I'm sorry, but given our limited time, we are not opening this up for debate or a question. We're just listening to the citizens. So that would be a discussion for a later date. I do apologize.
Okay, no, that's all right. So I just wanted to say that. And I think that really makes my point. Just I'd like to see opportunities for a little bit more moderate abilities in the state instead of just having, you know, the two sides. That's all. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate being able to speak.
Thank you. Our next panelist is Dawn Pop. There she is. Now, please be sure to unmute. There you go.
I apologize, I can't seem to get my camera to work. Good afternoon. My name is Dawn Pop, and I am the president of the Columbia Democratic Club. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today on behalf of the club. The Columbia Democratic Club is the oldest and most active Democratic club in Howard County. Each year, we serve as a conduit for hundreds of citizens to participate in the democratic process through our activities. We represent a broad spectrum of Democrats. The big tent is alive and well at the Columbia Democratic Club. So while our members often disagree on issues, I am here to testify on one issue our club members are unified on, the urgent need for the state of Maryland to move forward with congressional redistricting. This is a topic many of us have been discussing for some time, and we made it the focus of our November 13th general meeting when the club discussed and then voted unanimously to officially take a position in support of congressional redistricting in Maryland. At that meeting, member after member expressed concern about the breakneck speed with which other states are redistricting with the intent of helping maintain GOP power after the 2026 elections. Everyone agreed that we, as Democrats, can't continue to insist on norms or unilaterally disarm in the face of such actions on the other side. Equally important, our members strongly felt that a single individual should not stand in the way of this effort, however well respected that individual might be. This issue is important enough to at least allow a public debate and vote. And while nobody likes having to take this extreme measure, our consensus was that we can't sit idly by or push this off until 2028. As one member said at our meeting last week, the 2026 elections might be the last chance we have to save our democracy. This was not hyperbole, as every day we see this administration systematically chipping away at everything we hold dear, while the Republican Congress and the Supreme Court abdicate their constitutional responsibility to provide checks on the president's lawlessness and authoritarian tendencies. As individuals, our club members are reaching out to our Howard County delegation to help ensure that they understand how important this issue is to us. As a club, we are also working with partners across the state to ensure that our elected officials recognize that this is a critical issue for their constituents. We also believe that taking this proactive step is one way to re-engage citizens who feel like we are not doing enough to fight the current administration's attacks on our democracy. One of our proudest moments this year was the No Kings rally held in Columbia on October 18th. Partnering with other organizations, we were able to bring together some 6,500 people to protest the actions of this administration. At that rally, we heard similar messages repeated again and again. Do something. Don't just stand there. Fight back. Moving forward with congressional redistricting is one opportunity to do just that, and we can't squander it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker being promoted to panelist is Krish Vignaraja. Please accept the invite and be sure to unmute your microphone. Following the speaker, we have Brandon Russell, Michael Davis, Richard Elliott, and Megan Asayeb.
Good evening. It is really a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm really grateful to this commission. So as you mentioned, my name is Krish Vignaraja, and I offer this testimony in strong support of Governor Moore's initiative to ensure Marylanders are represented by fair maps. I speak not just as former policy director at the White House to First Lady Michelle Obama, but as a lifelong Marylander, urging you to use your constitutional authority to correct a generational flaw in our current boundaries. Some have wrongly argued that any map that crosses the Bay Bridge is unconstitutional. This is simply not true. In fact, from 1992 and 2012, Maryland's first district united the Eastern Shore with several of the maritime communities of Anne Arundel County. This connection wasn't just a map. It was a cohesive community of interest defined by the ecology and economy of the Bay. Reconnecting these communities is both legally durable and culturally responsive. The removal of this connectivity in 2012 replaced a natural maritime bond with a forced marriage with the communities along I-95 to the north. In fact, 54% of the first district's population today lives along the I-95 corridor. It's no longer a Chesapeake Bay district or an Eastern Shore district. This fundamental shift north drowned out the voice of the Bay communities, replacing a district focused on fisheries, coastal resilience, and agriculture with one dominated by interstate commuters, defense research, and ex-urban development. So I encourage the commission to propose a map that reconnects the Bay communities, not just because it is fair, but because it is constitutionally superior for three reasons. First, it's mathematically superior in compactness. The current first district map is a geographic contortion that drags the district nearly 200 miles from northeastern Baltimore County to the southern tip of Somerset County. By contrast, the Bay communities district relies on functional contiguity via US 50 directly across the Broadneck Peninsula, which would reduce the travel times between population centers from more than 3 hours to 30 minutes. This creates a tighter, more logically compact district that survives strict legal scrutiny. Second, it restores the maritime community of interest. The courts require maps to respect natural communities, and it makes sense to reconnect communities of the Eastern Shore with the Broadneck Peninsula. They share a single economic and ecological fate. They share the water. Reconnecting these communities corrects the I-95 imbalance and satisfies the community of interest standard far better than the status quo. Third and finally, it upholds this political division requirement. The Maryland Constitution requires due regard for political subdivisions and has prohibitions against fracturing incorporated towns. However, it is critical to note that vast population centers like Severna Park and Arnold are unincorporated, census-designated places, not municipalities. This gives this commission the legal.
Our next speaker is Michael Davis. Michael, be sure to accept and unmute.
Hi, I'm Michael Davis from Finksburg, Carroll County, Maryland. I'm an unaffiliated voter, and I'm speaking for myself. I am not in favor of efforts to redistrict and gerrymander electoral districts in Maryland. However, I understand the only way to reach national parity between the parties in the current environment is a race to the bottom, ending in maximum gerrymandering and minimum integrity, fairness, and representation in our political system. I would prefer a federal law banning the practice, but as we know, this doesn't seem likely. To maintain some level of fair representation with the voting public, we need open primaries in Maryland. And as gerrymandering moves the state further towards one-party rule, the primary election already determines the general election winner in most cases. Open primaries will give the 48% of voters in Maryland who are other than the majority party some voice in state and local elections. The current state of our election process leaves so many potential voters disenfranchised, like me, and gets worse if we redistrict. Therefore, whether or not redistricting is going to happen in Maryland, we definitely need open primaries, and that's critical. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker being promoted to panelist is Richard Elliott. Please accept and be sure to unmute your microphone.
The next speakers after Richard will be Megan Essaheb, Anthony Tillman, Philip Beninati, and Blair Postman.
May I begin?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. And thank you to the established panel and for all the people attending. My name is Richard Elliott. I am a voter living in Glendale, Maryland, the wealthiest Black zip code in the country, a rural area that I believe could be in the 4th or the 5th congressional district. I used to live in the Stone Hill community in the center of Baltimore, which I believe could be put into either the 7th congressional district or into a district adjoined with Baltimore County. I lived at Fort Meade at a point, a district in Anne Arundel County that could be mixed into one of several districts following suburban unincorporated lines between Howard County, Anne Arundel, and Baltimore County. I am a person in favor of the redistricting process. I am in favor of a fair and competitive redraw. And I believe that in the several of the communities that I have lived, they have been able to be in one of several different congressional districts based on the following characteristics: similar economics, travel time, communities of interest, rural, suburban, ex-urban divide. I believe that if there is to be a redraw, it is absolutely essential that the 7th and the 4th congressional districts maintain their current Voting Rights Act standard. And I believe that it is even possible for the 5th congressional district to obtain Voting Rights Act status during the redraw if there is to be one, which I believe strengthens it both legally and among the communities it represents. Thank you very much. That's all I have to say. And I thank the Senate President for the opportunity to listen in.
Thank you. Our next panelist is Megan Essaheb. Essaheb, I apologize once again. I'm promoting you, Megan, to a panelist. Please accept and unmute.
Great. You're doing great with my name. Hi, I'm Megan Essaheb. I live in Cheverly in Prince George's County, and I'm a member of Progressive Maryland. Thank you, Chair Wilson and members of the commission for this opportunity to testify. I'm here to express my strong support for redistricting in Maryland. I'm very concerned about Republican efforts to gerrymander other states and consolidate minority rule of the federal government. Many American people are angry about Republicans' DOGE cuts, their big ugly bill, HR 1, which takes away healthcare for 20 million people and slashes food assistance for hungry children, all in order to give tax cuts for billionaires and corporations and give ICE a huge slush fund to disappear people from our communities. Instead of listening and responding to the American people's anger, frustration, and fear about how Trump and Republican policies and actions are impacting people, they're basically twisting the arms of some Republican-controlled states to gerrymander their maps even further. Trump and Republicans are scared that they will lose control of the House of Representatives next year. And instead of listening to the American people and governing accordingly, they're going to gerrymander their maps so they can consolidate their minority rule of Congress. Maryland has been disproportionately impacted by the DOGE cuts to foreign aid and firing of federal workers. They cut jobs and then they cut Medicaid and affordable health care just when people need it most. So we owe it to Marylanders who've lost their job and will lose their health care to fight back against this gross power grab. And we owe it to our fellow Americans in states where people have been disenfranchised for a long time and are being further disenfranchised now. I imagine that the new Maryland maps are likely to actually be more competitive and not less for the independents on the call who are interested in that. If Republicans want to hold Congress, then they need to listen to their constituents and take popular policy positions and persuade people in free and fair elections with fair maps. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Our next speaker being promoted to panelist is Anthony Tillman. Please accept and be sure to unmute your microphone.
Hello, how you doing? Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. My name is Anthony Tillman. I'm commissioner for the great city of District Heights and candidate for delegate in District 25. And I'm here tonight in support of Governor Moore's transparent approach to Maryland's redistricting process. At a time where states across the country are rushing into mid-decade gerrymandering for political gain, Governor Moore is choosing something different: fairness, stability, and integrity. This redistricting advisory commission was created to ensure that Marylanders, not backroom politics, shape our maps and our future. Fresh redistricting will put Maryland at risk of lawsuits, risk of confusion, and risk of weakening our representation in Congress. Governor Moore and everybody in Maryland understand that protecting our voice matters, especially when national pressures and pushing states into bipartisan extremes. When the governor is doing is simple. He's putting Maryland's voters first. He's listening to the people, prioritizing transparency, and keeping Maryland out of the political chaos happening in other states. As a community leader and candidate, I support this fair, and thoughtful approach. Maryland deserves maps and a process that reflects our values and protects our democracy. Thank you, and I appreciate every single member of this panel for your time today. And thank you for your service.
Thank you. Our next panelist is Philip Beninati. Philip, please be sure to unmute. You are still muted. We have you there.
Good afternoon, members of the commission. Thank you for having us. My name is PJ Beninati. I'm a registered Democrat and the chair of the Maryland Forward Party. I wanted to start by acknowledging the complexity of the issue in front of us. We agree that this is a national growing crisis, and we agree that Governor Moore, that Maryland voters deserve fair maps. We also agree with Senator Bill Ferguson that this process should be thoughtful and not rushed. And by doing this wrong, we could be left with unintended consequences, which may make the situation worse for years to come. Looking across the country, there are clearly more red states able to make these types of changes than there are blue. And so the math ultimately does not add up and would benefit President Donald Trump and his MAGA agenda in the end. This will likely result in up to 2 congressional seats for Republican control and a true race to the bottom. We are then left with a congressional map for Maryland that is dominantly controlled by only one voice, which is ultimately not a fair map for Maryland voters, nor what they want. Most Maryland voters want a dialogue and a choice. Finally, as we've seen in Utah, there could be unintended consequences, which possibly result in even more Republican-controlled districts. Therefore, the Maryland Forward Party considers this to be a losing strategy for Maryland voters and one that we should not pursue outright. We instead believe in an alternative approach where truly fair and independent redistricting commissions are formed. This, coupled with additional solutions like ranked choice voting and opening our primary election system, could result in more choices for voters, more competitive campaigns, and an electoral process that Maryland can and should be proud of. We have an opportunity to lead the nation by example, and we encourage the Commission to consider these alternative options. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker being promoted to panelist is Blair Postman. Please accept and be sure to unmute your microphone. Following the speaker, we have Dorothy Samaniski, Sharonda Huffman, Crystal Peters, and Cynthia Rubenstein.
Okay, there we go. Hi, my name is Blair Postman. I live in the Little Italy neighborhood of Baltimore. I'm the founder of Cat Ladies for America, originally Cat Ladies for Kamala, and we have pro-democracy chapters across the United States, including in Baltimore and Montgomery County, Maryland. Our Maryland members are in strong favor of redistricting because we are very concerned about what Republican-led gerrymandering will mean for our citizens as well as the nation. If we don't make a stand now, there's no telling how far these extremists wannabe authoritarian lawmakers directed by the president will go to shield their unpopular policies from being voted down at the ballot box. Some folks want to act like that's not a factor, when in reality, it is ball game, because we can't overcome this extreme, coordinated, authoritarian power grab across multiple states by hoping for an immense over-the-top record-breaking voter turnout, or hoping that the worst won't happen. Folks want to stick to the post-census redistricting timeline, and we can still do it again after the 2030 census. But the forces wanting to dismantle democracy are here now, and they don't care what our plans and preferences are. This may not be the tool to fight back everyone would have chosen, but in the real world, it is the tool we have, and we can't wish a different reality into being. If we don't use it, the U.S. House won't reflect the will of the voters in this state and countless others across the country, and we will likely lose the ability to fight back through elections. Without action, the results will be more policies that are hurting Maryland's economy, our civil rights, and attacking the very foundations of democracy. Will there be challenges in court? Probably, but there's no indication that the Maryland Supreme Court is just going to hand down its own map. And I believe that Marylanders would rather fight and try than lay it down and just let it happen. Since when are we quitters? We always had a terrible season and they lost a lot. The last I checked, we're not forfeiting the 2026 season already in advance, folding up the team and closing down Camden Yards. Our leaders are right to stand up and resist Republican-led efforts to rig the 2026 midterms. We can't let voices of our fellow citizens be silenced. Maryland has got to fight back. Thank you, and let's go O's.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Sharonda Huffman. Please be sure to unmute.
Thank you so much. My name is Sharonda Huffman. I am a candidate for Baltimore County Council and president of the Blue and Gold Democratic Club. Mid-cycle redistricting is tricky, and I live in Baltimore County, Maryland, Essex. But apparently the decision has been made to move forward. My concern is simple. As long as the Federal Voting Rights Act exists, we cannot violate it. Yes, the Supreme Court has allowed partisan redistricting. No, it has not allowed the silencing of minority voices based on race or language. I'm running for Baltimore County Council, and I'm going to say what others won't. I have not heard many of our statewide leaders speak up about the racial minority voter suppression happening right here in Maryland's third largest district. Silence is not courage, silence is complicity. However, better late than never to try to stay in between the lines of the law, but continue to fight for our rights. If we're going to move forward with drawing a new map, then at the very least, pass the Maryland Voting Rights Act. It will help communities and prevent costly legal battles that we already know are coming. And let me be real for a moment. I've lived the consequence of political discrimination over 20 years ago under the Ehrlich administration when Larry Hogan was appointment secretary. I was discriminated against at work because of my party affiliation. Andy Harris was my state senator, and Brian Frost handled the state's involvement on the senatorial level. I was fired while on FMLA and ultimately received a negotiated settlement with the state of Maryland. So when I talk about fairness, it's not theory, it's lived experience. But here's the irony. Back then, nobody cared about the Democrats. And now when I try to follow the rules, we're still being disenfranchised and bamboozled, sometimes by the very people who claim to be on our side. Move forward if you must, but do not lean on your own understanding. Please bring in independent experts, the ACLU of Maryland, Common Cause, and Brennan Center if you have to, before actually moving forward with a new map, because doing it wrong will cost us more than legal fees. It will cost us trust. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker being promoted to panelist is Crystal Peters. Please accept the invite and be sure to unmute.
Hello, my name is Crystal Peters, and I am from Baltimore County. I'm currently serving as Action Vice President and PAC Administrative for Maryland National Organization for Women, but today I'm speaking for myself. I support redistricting for the following reasons. First of all, the principle. Maryland is a national leader on many issues, and showing up to defend democracy is what we do. We cannot let democracy fail due to bureaucratic loopholes that are being purposely exploited and stand by paralyzed by rules and norms. Secondly, Steve Bannon told The Economist that the goal of the redistricting efforts are to get the House in a situation that is permanently defendable by the MAGA movement. So it's a blocking mechanism. He then said the purpose is to seize the institutions. Those are direct quotes, and we cannot let that happen. Knowing that this is the publicly stated goal for the redistricting process, the Maryland legislature has a fiduciary duty to protect the state by combating this nefarious effort, and the only tool in the toolbox is to counter it with opposing redistricting efforts. We have a one-time shot. Any legislator who conflates today's Texas court ruling with what could happen to us is being disingenuous about the ruling because it was based on racial gerrymandering that violates the Voting Rights Act. Partisan gerrymandering is legal per Supreme Court ruling in 2019. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now be promoting Cynthia Rubenstein to a panelist. Cynthia, please be sure to unmute.
Good afternoon, honorable members of the Commission. I'm Cynthia Rubenstein, President of the Women's Democratic Club of Montgomery County, established in late 1956 and now representing nearly 650 members across the county. Thank you for allowing me to testify today on the critical issue of redistricting. WDC went on record in support of redistricting on September 8th, 2025, when we sent a letter to the governor, presiding officers of the General Assembly, and to the Montgomery County delegation. We also urged the calling of a special session to address redistricting. In our letter, we stated, as a trifecta state, Maryland must respond in kind to mid-decade redistricting in Republican-led states. Trump's pressure on Republican-led states to find seats for 2026 cannot go unchallenged. Time is of the essence to ensure a fair and balanced impact in the 2026 elections. We urge immediate action to push back. On November 7th, we again weighed in by sending a letter in support to the governor regarding his establishment of the commission. In that letter, we stated the following. Thank you for establishing the Governor's Redistricting Advisory Commission as a response to the Trump administration's continuous attacks on our democratic institutions, electoral system, and civil liberties. This new commission of state leaders will generate open, public, and deliberative discourse on the issue of redistricting that this moment calls for. We have faith in the process you have chosen, and WDC will support the recommendations of the commission. Last week, WDC submitted our legislative priorities to the Montgomery County delegation, and included was the redistricting matter as one of our priorities, stated thus: understanding that meeting the moment requires extraordinary measures, we support legislation to enable redistricting in the state of Maryland prior to the 2026 elections if the newly formed commission recommends redistricting. WDC believes that Maryland must not sit on the sidelines. The stakes are high. In September of 1787, at the close of the Constitutional Convention, Elizabeth Willings Powells asked Benjamin Franklin if the new government was a republic or a monarchy. Franklin replied, "A republic if you can keep it." Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we have a next handful of speakers that no longer appear to be on the call: Deborah Murray, Amy Leahy, and Joni Palco. If you are on the call, please just make sure you check your name, and we'll try to get back to you. But we'll be moving forward with Diane Butler. I'm going to go ahead and promote you to panelists, and please be sure to unmute.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm here today as a private citizen of the state of Maryland, but I'll be leaning on my experience as a past local board of elections member for 8 years and a current state board of elections member during my testimony. I believe that there's a very serious factor that we should consider in this quest to redistrict outside of the parameters of the census redistricting. We need to carefully consider the effects that this will have on the State Board of Elections and the local Board of Elections' abilities to meet legal deadlines that are outlined in election law and COMAR, and these protect the voting rights of the citizens. This will also affect the ability of the local boards and the directors in order to do their jobs. Our boards of elections work very hard at what they do at the local level and at the state level, but we have many strict deadlines and they have to be met, some of which have already passed. A redistricting now will negatively affect the local boards and the state board in their ability to give the citizens of Maryland the very best voting experience. There's a couple deadlines set in October of 2025 already. We already had, this was the deadline for the number of registered voters. The reason we do that is to determine the number of active registered voters for use to determine the number of early voting centers in each jurisdiction. It's important that we do that. The state does that, and then the counties have to work behind us on that. That deadline has already gone past. November 24th is the date that the election plans are due. So each county is sending election plans to the state board to have them approved. And this is that includes the early voting centers, the drop box locations, and the polling locations. If you change districts and precincts, then that changes all of these. So these are deadlines that we're at right now. As we move forward, we don't have a lot of time. We've got pre-election notices, they're out in February. I mean, by May, we've got the mail-in ballots are out in the mail, and by June, we're done with voting. That is so close to the deadlines that we have right now, and so close to today's date that it would be very, very difficult for them to do. If we do something like this, we have to the state board has to send out new voter registration cards to anyone that's had a change in their polling day locations or district changes. It's just really, really too late in the system, in the timeline for this election to do that. Please do not put the local boards and the state board in this negative position. And quite frankly, the state's pretty broke, and we really don't have the funds to do this either right now. I would just hate to see our hardworking everyone, everyone from the judges to the directors to everyone, and with all the work that they do to meet these timelines, I'd hate to see them missed. Thank you.
Our next panelist is Victor Thirani. There we go. Victor, please be sure to unmute.
I'd like to offer you a third way forward. And that would be, there's a choice between following the lead of California, which did redistricting. And as you know, the voters of California overwhelmingly supported that, or not to do redistricting. There's a middle way, and that is to pair with Kansas. Kansas and Maryland both have one congressional seat that could be changed through redistricting. And they're similar in the sense that in Kansas, the Republicans who are in charge, they're kind of similar to where we are here, that not everybody is on board. So what Maryland could do is to go ahead and say, we're going to redistrict, but if Kansas doesn't redistrict, we'll hold off. That could encourage Kansas not to act. It would end up being simpler. When I said pairing, that's a concept that's used by legislators. You know, one legislator is sick and can't come and vote, and another legislator pairs with them. So we're kind of balancing, and it could be, it's a middle way between doing nothing and actually redistricting. And it would have the same effect if both Kansas and Maryland redistricted, we would neutralize each other. So this would avoid that complexity. So I hope you would consider this.
Thank you. Are you finished with your testimony?
Yes, I am. That's about it. And thank you so much for holding these sessions.
Thank you.
Our next speaker being promoted to panelist is Liz Walsh. Please accept the invite and be sure to unmute. Following the speaker, we have Martin Etzel, Darren Burns, Michael Rapogel, Sarah Gillen, and Joyce Toll.
Good evening. My name is Liz Walsh. I'm a second-term council member from Howard County. Currently, that council's chair. I speak in my capacity, though, as the duly elected representative for the 55,000 or so residents of my District 1, and that includes Don Pop and the Columbia Democratic Club that you heard from earlier this evening. Anecdotally, I agree that most of here in District 1, Howard County, feel quite strongly that Maryland now must undertake mid-cycle redistricting. State-specific polling bears that same feeling out statewide. According to recent report in Politico, the concept of redistricting appeals to most primary voters in Maryland. When more details are provided, an overwhelmingly majority does. Democracy in this country is in existential threat. Other witnesses this evening and before speak of disenfranchisement. I speak of disappearing of hard-won rights, 250 years in the making in this country, disappeared overnight. Women's reproductive rights, immigrant rights, our gay, queer, and trans family rights. Everyone here is struggling. Our Black and brown families. Rent is higher. Electricity bills are skyrocketing. and no one can find the jobs they need in a market like Maryland, where so many of those jobs are at risk in the federal government. We in Maryland have the power in direct opposition to the existential threat, and it is our responsibility to exercise that power to take action now. I testify today in strongest support of mid-cycle redistricting. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We now have Martin Etzel. Martin, please be sure to unmute.
There we go. Sorry. I had to find it on the bottom. Okay, you should be able to hear me now. Okay, I can see myself. So, yeah, hi, Martin Etzel. I'm from Annapolis, Maryland, or maybe more specifically from Eastport across the harbor. I'm not affiliated with any of the partisan groups on either side of the aisle that is speaking. I'm just a citizen and taxpayer. I'm one of your constituents. When I heard all of this coming out, I kind of stepped back and said, well, let's see how bad it really is in Texas or California and compare that to Maryland. In Texas, before redistricting, there's 12 out of 38 of the districts are Democrat. So even, or yeah, 12 out of 38 are Democrat. And even after the 7, that's still about 20% that would still be Democrat in Texas. Maryland today is 1 out of 8, 12%. And we want to eliminate that one voice for the favor of the 52% registered Democrats against the Republicans and independents who would seemingly get no voice. California, not a whole lot different. Today, it's 43 out of 52 are Democrat, and 5 change would make it about 10%, 12%, again, about the same as Maryland. So just looking at it from a numbers and so-called disenfranchisement, it's a bit laughable that Maryland wants to now completely eliminate any other voice other than the party and partisan group that's in power. I would argue, and Mr. Ferguson, thank you for your leadership voice on this, in terms of reordering priorities. But I would argue there's a lot of other bigger issues at hand for us citizens, average everyday people. We already are working through a 1.6 billion increase in taxes and fees. I just re-registered both of my cars. I didn't need to refinance it or pay it over time, thankfully, but it's a bit sad when you have to pay an annual registration on time. This last week, we heard that there's another 1.5 billion deficit coming. And then today, the news breaks that the Key Bridge will cost nearly triple the original estimate and take at least 2 more years. So if you need a special session, I think you need a special session on understanding where the money's coming in and where the money's being spent, and not these partisan charades to please the governor and plump up his national ambitions. Thank you for your time. And I hope that you will do the right thing and just put this to the side and focus on issues that really matter to the citizens. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker will be moving on to Michael Replogle. Apologies if I'm mispronouncing your last name. I am promoting you to panelists. Please be sure to unmute. And you may proceed when ready. And Michael, we can't hear you if you are talking. Okay, it appears he's having some trouble here. I'm going to go ahead and move him back to attendee, and we'll try to get back to you, Michael. Sorry about that. So we will be moving forward with, let's see, next we have.
Looks like Delegate Kathy Jalega.
Okay.
I will promote her to a panelist. There we go. Please, there you go. Please be sure to unmute as well. Thank
Can
you.
you
We've
hear
got
me?
you. Yep.
Thank you. For the record, I'm Delegate Kathy Shalega, a Republican representing Baltimore County and a resident of Maryland's 1st Congressional District for more than 25 years. Maryland has become a national poster child for ruthless partisan gerrymandering. Democrats already hold a supermajority in the General Assembly and control 7 of 8 congressional seats. For decades, they have used engineered maps to crush minority political voices. Republicans, independents, and conservative Democrats have been carved, cracked, and packed into oblivion. Despite all this manipulation, Marylanders refuse to be completely silenced, and in 2 of the last 4 gubernatorial elections, they have elected a Republican. That alone proves voters want balance, not one-party domination. But now Governor Wes Moore is going beyond even the worst gerrymandering of the past, and what he's attempting is not reform, and it's not fairness. Marylanders have long memories. About 20 years ago, the state's congressional delegation was evenly split 4-4. After 2 decades of partisan map rigging, only 1 Republican district remains. That didn't happen because of demographics. It happened because of political gerrymandering. The courts have already said enough. In Shalega versus Lamone, a case that was decided by Judge Lynn Battaglia, a Democrat-appointed judge not known for conservative leanings, the Maryland court declared Maryland's congressional map was, quote, an extreme partisan gerrymander that, quote, discriminated against voters and candidates based on their political affiliation. It was drawn specifically to dilute Republican votes. Battaglia found that the map was constructed with the intent to guarantee partisan outcomes, a direct violation of the Maryland Constitution and Declaration of Rights. Her ruling forced the General Assembly to redraw the map, and it was one of the strongest legal repudiations of partisan abuse in Maryland's history. But this wasn't unprecedented. In 2002, the Maryland Court of Appeals threw out Governor Paris Glendenning's partisan legislative map and redrew it themselves. The judiciary intervened because the political branches refused to produce anything resembling fairness. When politicians abuse their power, the courts can restore balance. The members of this redistricting commission can conclude that congressional redistricting mid-cycle is not a good idea. You can oppose it, and I urge you to do that. Should you push through a map extinguishing Republicans, you can call it fair, but it would just be a power grab that flies in the face of democracy. If another gerrymandered partisan map is passed, we will see you in court, and we will see you at the ballot box. I urge you to vote against moving ahead with mid-cycle redistricting. Thank you for your time. Good to see you, CT and Senator Ferguson.
Thank you.
Our next speaker being promoted to panelist is Kashina Cross. Please accept the invite and be sure to unmute.
And Kashina, right after you, Mr. Replogle, I apologize if I'm pronouncing that wrong. We will come right back to you.
Thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to speak on such an interesting but valuable topic. Good evening to our Senate President and to our former fellow mayor. I thank you so much that Maryland is now at a pivotal moment in our democracy. We have a process that is not simply about drawing lines on a map, but it is, in fact, about ensuring that every Marylander's voice is heard and that every community receives fair representation. I fully support the work of the 5-member Redistricting Advisory Commission, which is chaired by our dear former county executive of Prince George's County, Senator Angela Alsobrook. As a member of Prince George's County myself, members including amongst many, the former Attorney General, Mr. Frost, and then of course, Cumberland's Mayor Morris, and Speaker there as well, Speaker Ferguson. This panel, you have a distinct responsibility to recommend fairness and representation across the congressional district maps. What's happening at the national level is not only a tragedy, but it's an impact to every Maryland district every Maryland district, whether Republican, Democratic, conservative, liberalist, or undetermined. We have a requirement to recognize that we must be different in our viewpoints and how we handle not only this process, but that it doesn't lean itself into the partisan lack of attention to the political challenges that are now facing every American citizen. We, as the people, are now unilaterally intentional about what the next formal elections will look like, because we must fight back on the backfire not only of the courts, but also continue to exercise care and caution and transparency. As an executive and a legislative leader myself, I strongly support a process that is open, inclusive, and guided by the people of Maryland. All people. I request that public hearings, ballots, even straw ballots in newspapers. Everyone likes to quote Politico. Well, put a ballot on Politico and see what you get, because this is one of those where surveys and participation is a mechanism that is mandatory for fair choices and fair voices. We want to empower our voters. I do acknowledge and respect my the former comments that have been made about the election timing, because again, maintaining a steady face at the table of reason is what we are after. Even under extreme pressure, and ensuring that maps produce a legally sound, fair, and representative government for our people. Marylanders deserve this map to be respected of the community's interests and protects every voice and upholds that public trust. And in conclusion, I support your efforts. I believe that we are building transparency and inclusion.
Thank you. Michael, there you go. Michael, if you could just go ahead and start. You're still muted, sir.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm Michael Replogle. I'm a resident of Severna Park, Maryland, and I applaud the efforts by Governor Moore to appoint the commission, and applaud your efforts as a commission to develop timely recommendations for progress on this issue. I want to testify in favor of mid-cycle redistricting. I formerly supported efforts to have a more nonpartisan districting process in Maryland when that was a big issue some years ago. I've lived for most of the last 3 decades in Maryland and in Montgomery County and Anne Arundel County. Many of my ancestors fought in the American Revolution and the Civil War and world wars to create and defend America's democracy. The wheels are coming off of our democracy, however, as Republicans have weaponized the process of gerrymandering across the country and created a process where nationally the majority opinion of our national population of voters isn't fairly represented in Congress. And Maryland needs to counter those Republican gerrymanders by advancing our own efforts to protect our national democracy. And we should also lay foundations to advance things like ranked choice voting in our state, but act quickly to redistrict so that we can counter the threats in the 2026 election cycle, ensuring fair representation of the majority of our population in our national government, and protecting our democracy at a time when it's under existential threat. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker being promoted to panelist is Carl Arrow. Please accept and be sure to unmute.
Okay. Good evening, good afternoon. I'm Carl Arrow. Just very quickly, I know that Senator Ferguson and Delegate Wilson know who I am, but let me just say that I worked for the Maryland General Assembly for almost 40 years, Last half of that as Executive Director, Department of Legislative Services, the nonpartisan agency. I've also been involved in 5 rounds of redistricting, the first 4 as the primary independent staff person to serve all the legislators in the legislature. And I've been through a lot. I won't say I'm an expert, but I've been through a lot. I've seen a lot. And I have to say that I think that doing this midterm redistricting is a major mistake, very high risk for a lot of reasons. Well, first of all, the last round of redistricting, there was a ruling that we had engaged in extreme partisan gerrymandering. We lost that case. It was probably one of the first case or second case we ever lost in court because we adhered very closely to constitutional requirements in drawing maps. I think if you eliminate the only remaining Republican congressional district, you're going to find yourself in court with, again, extreme partisan gerrymandering. And I think, quite frankly, the state will lose. Courts can do a lot of things. They can suggest another map. They can throw it back to the General Assembly to do it. They can say, hey, you got to run under the current map anyway because we don't have enough time to decide what to do. So there's a lot of complexity here. I think that you will be sued. I used to joke and say that the last step in redistricting was go to court, because no matter what you do, you're going to go to court. And I think the timing of this is very bad. It's too late in the year. As was previously stated, the local boards and the state board have too much to do for this. You're going to create tremendous problems logistically for them. You're going to confuse voters, and you are probably going to anger a lot of independents who already, from what I've heard this evening, are not very happy about things. And I think that that's just going to exacerbate the situation. There's so much I heard today and so much I could talk about. I know I've only got a couple minutes, but with 40 years of experience under my belt, I could probably talk to you for an hour or so. But I do think there's another alternative. And what I think you should do is, or at least the Democratic Party should consider doing, is basically trying to find somebody, a Republican who's not MAGA, and primary Andy Harris. Make him spend his money now, go after him that way. He's full on MAGA now, and those policies are very unpopular. In fact, in my craziness, I think you should try to convince Larry Hogan to run in the first. You don't have to be a resident of your congressional district to run it or represent it. He's very popular. He's not a MAGA guy.
Thank you, sir. Our next panelist is Sarahia Ben. Again, I apologize if I've mispronounced that. Please be sure to unmute.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello. Hi. How you doing? I just want to say I've heard a lot tonight, and there's definitely some issues with the redistricting, but definitely you can end up in court based on my district. Over a decade ago, our state senator, a Republican, pushed for District 34 to be redrawn into Congressional District 2 so that our voting rights would not be marginalized or stripped. Yet in less than 2 decades, Black, brown, and other marginalized voters in my district, significant portion were shifted into Congressional District 1, represented by Andy Harris, who does not respond to our needs or concerns. I visit Capitol Hill annually to discuss nonprofit and community issues. He never agreed to meet with me personally. Even last May, he came out of a meeting with a Republican group, not even from our district, and went on to ignore our sickle cell coalition, despite being a doctor. He has drawn his own conclusions about our concerns and refuses to engage with the substance of them. As a resident of District 34, I went from having real representation to having my civil and voting rights stripped within 10 years, all to appease a small partisan bloc unable to win on issues or community support. These are not abstract harms. This is a political disenfranchisement in real time. Redistricting has real and lasting consequences. When communities are carved apart, stitched into districts that have nothing to do with their lived reality, their power is diluted. Their voices are ignored. And what I want to add, Harford County, specifically in my area, should not be tethered to the political realities of the Eastern Shore. Harford is culturally, economically aligned with suburban Baltimore County, not the agriculture and rural structure of the shore. In many ways, Cecil County is more culturally and geographically similar to Harford County, especially when you look at Elkton. And why it's drawn into Maryland 1 makes no sense. If we are serious about drawing maps that reflect people's lived communities, then Harford should be linked to those areas like Baltimore County, where we share workforce, transportation corridors, commercial ties, and socioeconomic realities. And I know this because I am a transportation advocate. Even major economic engines such as the Trade Point Atlantic and the Inner Harbor have stronger regional connections to Hartford than anything in the Bay. Redistricting should follow community lines, economic ties, lived experience, not partisan engineering meant to silence voices, because our voices are silenced. Thank you for this attention, but I urge you to create districts that respect mine and my community's civil rights, protect marginalized communities, reflect the real geographic, cultural connections of Harford County. Because if you're going to go into court, and I heard Miss Kathy talk about that, we will have to go to court as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker being promoted to panelist is Jawanda Strickland Lucas. Please accept the invite and be sure to unmute.
As she's joining, our next speakers are Marla Posey-Moss, Sally Taylor, Lloyd Hooks, John Kilker, and Sarah Brand-Wita.
I have sent the invite, but it does not appear that Jawanda has accepted it yet.
I will then go ahead and promote Marla. Marla Posey. Oh, here's Jawanda.
Okay.
Jawanda, please unmute.
Hi. Good afternoon, Governor Moore and commissioners. My name is Jawanda Strickland Lucas, and I support the governor's call for redistricting. I live in Harford County, where I've been active in civic engagement for over 50 years. Today, I am here to represent Voices Maryland and Policy Foundation of Maryland in the discussion of the mid-cycle redistricting in Maryland. I also serve as vice chair of the Harford County Democratic Central Committee and wear many other hats that I do not speak for tonight. In my years, I've lived through different types of representation. I've seen firsthand the impact of redistricting. With the most recent racially imbalanced redistricting done, disenfranchising an entire community of Democrats living in District 1 by putting us in a district where the Representative Andy Harris, who only does not listen to our concerns, but is against them, without even considering or caring about the substance of our concerns. He is an extremist supporter of the person who holds the current seat of President of America and very impactful in the House in this role. Is this truly representative of Maryland? Redistricting is very impactful, especially in many communities in Harford County and in Maryland, and in Harford County, where the largest percentage of Democrats that live in District 1 and now fall under the tyranny of one of the most heinous, biased, racist, and inequitable Republican representatives in Congress. This man tried to carry a concealed firearm onto the House floor after the January 6th insurrection and adversely impacts democracy in Maryland and in our entire nation on a daily basis. This is not just about Harford County, nor is it about politics or personal national political ambitions, as has been portrayed of our governor. This is about Maryland. Gerrymandering dilutes the voice of our community and undermines the democratic process. This is true. But redistricting provides equitable representation. This mid-census redistricting is definitely not gerrymandering or voter suppression. It's a transparent, equal step toward representation. We need maps that empower communities, not maps that treat our votes as disposable. especially in a community that is still growing. We are in a fight for democracy at this time, not after the next census. We cannot be afraid and must be willing to take the small steps now to achieve the larger goal. We have to step out of our comfort zones and bear the inconvenience that may bring. I urge you to draw districts that represent and respect the.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Marla Posey Moss. And be sure to unmute.
Greetings, and thank you, Commission and Governor Moore, for allowing the public to speak. I am a Harford County resident and live in the only congressional Republican district in Maryland. I'm a registered voter speaking on my behalf who supports the mid-cycle redistricting. Like many others, I don't support the practice of gerrymandering, the construction of congressional districts without the support of the census, or disenfranchising any registered voter. However, we have to be realistic and understand the consequences of our action or inaction. This is more than just about Maryland. This is about the United States of America and our democracy. And we must have a united front as Americans. Currently, we have a do-nothing Congress that doesn't use its power to protect Marylanders and other American citizens and residents. In a sense, we're already disenfranchised. Our Congress is so petty that a representative who was voted in office 7 weeks ago was just sworn in last Wednesday. We have no choice but to put the United States Constitution at the forefront and move forward to redraw the congressional lines in Maryland to help combat the ill wills of this federal administration and a weak Congress. No matter anyone's party affiliation, we are all threatened, and we need to fight for our democracy by being as competitive as possible to balance the power of the United States Congress, because what exists right now are individuals who serve a man and not the United States Constitution. That act in and of itself puts all the work many organizations who are testifying today in peril. We are at the brink of dismantling the Voting Rights Act. We're moving toward removing the due process rights of individuals, and there's a desire to censor everything we do. In fact, the attempt to totally dismantle the United States Department of Education and embolden racism in our military should have everyone up in arms. It is imperative to redistrict the congressional lines and more strategically implement it in a temporary fashion. Yet it needs to be done in the most transparent way possible and effectively communicate where people are to vote during the midterm elections. In fact, Harford County congressional drawing should be aligned with the greater suburban Baltimore County. During the presidential election of 2024, 77 million people voted to have what we are currently experiencing, and it's not without consequence. We all need to be held accountable for our actions, and because we are all in this boat together, we must use every ounce of our being to fight for our rights. Please move forward with this process, and please let me know how I can be of assistance. I ask that when we do return to a more civilized government, we must return back to basing our congressional lines on the census. Please continue to move forward with the mid-cycle redistricting and consider going back to normal operations when congressional and federal leaders become more rational and fight for Marylanders. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is Sally Taylor. I'm sending you an invite for panelists. Please be sure to unmute.
Hello, I'm Sally Taylor. I'm from Carroll County. I'm a Republican, and I support a fair map for Maryland because we haven't had a fair map in Maryland for a very, very long time. I was a plaintiff in one of the 2022 court cases, which threw out the 2022 map because of extreme partisanship. I believe we still have that same extreme partisanship in what we currently have. I live in Carroll County. Carroll County for decades was a member of the 6th Congressional District. The 6th Congressional District has not had a representative that lives in the district because it has been so easily bought by a billionaire and millionaire. And I would also encourage that if you go through this process, to make a recommendation to the General Assembly that a representative must reside in the district they represent. I know that's not part of the US Constitution, but I believe the state of Maryland can make that further restriction. As far as transparency, if Mr. Arlo, who is a previous speaker, knows, these maps are very easily drawn. In fact, I don't know how I can put, oh, there we go. Oops, am I still there?
Yes, you're with us.
Okay, well, I have a map that has things that are compact, contiguous, and has most counties in the state of Maryland together. And we can do this. We can post these all around. The General Assembly can look at them, and they can accomplish these type of a true fair map in hours if we are committed to a fair map. I don't want to be in the 8th congressional district like I was with Montgomery County, and I don't want to be in the 2nd congressional district with Baltimore County, just like the good ladies didn't want to be in the 1st congressional district in Harford County. You know you can do it, and if fairness is what we're after, then this won't have to go to the courts. But if fairness isn't what is accomplished, it will go to the courts. Thank you so much for y'all's time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is John Kilker. Please be sure to unmute.
Good evening, members of the commission. My name is John Kilker, and I'm here on behalf of UFCW Local 1994 McGeo, representing thousands of public employees across Maryland. And I'm testifying today in support of mid-cycle redistricting. Our members serve communities across Maryland. They plow snow, protect public safety, maintain critical infrastructure, and keep essential services running. Much of our members' work centers on supporting our most vulnerable neighbors, children in crises, seniors who rely on public programs, women seeking safety, and so many others who depend on a functioning, compassionate government, and that's exactly how our democracy should work. Across the country, we're witnessing an organized effort to erode the basic norms of our democratic system, to manipulate congressional maps to predetermine outcomes, and weaken the political power of working people and communities of color. It's strategic, it's deliberate, and it's profoundly undemocratic. Maryland cannot sit idle while other states alter their congressional maps. Congressional majorities matter only if by a single vote. Until such time as there is comprehensive national election reform to ensure fair congressional maps independent of partisan bias, we must defend our democracy with the tools available to us. Therefore, we urge you to move forward with the process of mid-cycle redistricting in an inclusive and transparent manner. On behalf of UFCW Local 1994 McGeo, thank you for the opportunity to testify, and thank you for your work to ensure that Maryland defends democracy. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, moving to panelists, is Sarah Brand-Wita. Please accept the invite and be sure to unmute.
Thank you, Ms. Fleckenstein. My name is Sarah Brand-Wita. I am the Assistant Treasurer and Precinct Organization Chair of the Montgomery County Democratic Central Committee. This statement reflects my personal experience and is not the official position of the Montgomery County Democratic Party. Ideally, the districts in every state would be drawn fairly, everywhere from Maryland to Texas. But Republicans in red states are doing their utmost to disenfranchise their Democratic constituents in 2026 and beyond. With control of the House of Representatives on the line, Maryland must consider redistricting as a tool for protecting not just Democrats in red states, but all Marylanders who are at risk from the Trump administration's attempts to pull our federal funding, their harassment of immigrants, their cuts to federal jobs, and their ceaseless attacks on civil liberties and the foundations of American democracy. When the MCDCC surveyed our volunteers on whether they supported redrawing our congressional map, we found that 78% were supportive or strongly supportive, with another 8% wanting more information before deciding. Respondents from all sides had not only strong feelings, but also nuanced and thoughtful comments. This complex and critical issue deserves small d democratic debate in our state legislature so that Marylanders' elected representatives from all areas of the state can weigh in. In my personal capacity, I urge you, Senate President Ferguson, to call a special legislative session to consider mid-cycle redistricting in a way that is transparent, fair, and accessible to all Marylanders. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Andrew Snow. And as Andrew is joining, I will say that with the time that we have, we may have time for one more speaker. The speakers listed after this are Clarence Butler, Siobhan Davenport, Jason Fowler. And when we finish with the last speaker, I will go through the list of individuals we did not get to and recommend that you sign up for the next meeting on December 5th or submit testimony via email. Andrew, please go ahead.
Carol, can you hear me?
Yes.
I have horrific lighting, so I'll change the lighting as I start to speak. Sorry about that. Thank you so much for this opportunity to speak. I'm a lifelong Marylander. I am a registered Democrat, but I'm not I'm just speaking for myself as a citizen and a voter. I am a retired federal employee, and I served overseas much of my career, and including twice in Iraq. And I must say my experience overseas is coloring what I'm seeing happening in the United States today, because we are at risk of creeping authoritarianism, and therefore we can't act as though Maryland is some kind of island. We have to look at the national context. So obviously, in an ideal world, we wouldn't need to just have a mid-cycle redistricting, and we wouldn't need to gerrymander, and it's a terrible practice, and it would be much better if some sort of proportional representation or a national compact against partisan redistricting. But that's not the world we live in. And I actually feel like we're at risk of being on a path like 1933 Germany. I realize that may sound like an extreme example. I hope I'm wrong, but we are at risk of that. And therefore, we can't be like the Social Democrats or the center-right parties in 1933 Germany, fighting amongst ourselves. We need to look at the national context and stand up to creeping authoritarianism. Democrats didn't start this fight. President Trump and the Texas Republicans did. And if you look at the list of Republican states that have gerrymandered and disenfranchised their Democratic voters, in some cases, a large minority of the voters, over 40%, it's very long. It's not just Texas. It's Texas and Florida and North Carolina and Ohio and Indiana and Missouri. And, the list goes on. So the more than counterbalance the Californias and the potentially Maryland and New York and so on. So we can't bring it, to be a little bit crass about it, we can't bring a knife to a gunfight. We have to stand up for democracy. And I support the governor's proposed mid-cycle redistricting for all the reasons that many of the speakers have cited. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Wilson, Chair Wilson, I believe we have time for one more, perhaps even two, unless there is necessary time required for the commission members to have any discussion.
I'm sure the members would agree. If we can get, obviously, the more people we can hear from, the better. Is everybody okay with that? Uh-oh.
I have to run at probably no later than 6:05. I apologize.
We will need to end by 6 p.m. So let's go ahead and call our next speaker. Mary, do you have that person?
Yes, we have Taylor Fraser McCollum.
Thank you.
Taylor, the invite has been sent. If you could accept, and please be sure to unmute.
And the next speaker is going to be Zakiya Cunningham.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'll try to be quick. Hello, commission members. I'm Taylor Fraser McCollum, and I appreciate you giving me this opportunity. It's clear due to a lack of participation of the commission that a decision may have already been made. So I will say this, maps will never be fair until we change things on a federal level from single delegate districts to multi-delegate districts. I do not support partisan redistricting mid-census, and we just redistricted in 2022. And as a proud Green Party member, I have no more representation in the 2022 maps than I did in previous maps. I guarantee if we redistrict now, independent and third-party voters like myself will continue to be disenfranchised. We need to switch to multi-delegate districts. It's not constitutionally required, so would not require a constitutional amendment. Proportional representation uses multi-seat districts with representation allocated in proportion to votes. The Uniform Congressional Act was passed in 1967. At that time, the U.S. population was around 200 million. It's now over 340 million. As we grow in population and in opinion, we see how broken the two-party system is. How beautiful would it be to get rid of an outdated law and bring America to the future of democracy? The only reason a sitting member of the House of Representatives wouldn't want this is because they fear competition. Proportional representation will work with voting rights and not against it like redistricting. Let's get serious about real change and stop Governor Moore's performative plan to boost his own political aspirations. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think we have this time for this one last guest, Zakiya Cunningham. I'm promoting you to a panelist. Please accept the link and be sure to turn on your microphone. As we are doing that, again, for those who did not get an opportunity, please know that there is a meeting on December 5th that you will be able to register for. And please, there you go. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Zakiya Cunningham. I am speaking with you all today on behalf of the Friends of Jennifer. I am her communication. Sorry, I've got my son in the background. He's going to be talking to us a little bit. So thank you all so much. Jennifer is running the Maryland State Delegate 29A. She couldn't be here to a dental procedure, but we weren't going to have her join, but it would have been entertaining, but probably not very effective. So our statement is as follows. Representation matters. Politically motivated manipulation of legislative districts is not new and has historically been used to intentionally disenfranchise minoritized, disabled, military, women voters. We get that Maryland is currently responding to threats to the current administration to find votes and to tip the scales of justice in his favor. This does not reflect the morals, standards, or ethos of a civilized, democratic, or republic. It is the hope of this campaign that the Maryland Commission is truly bipartisan in its efforts and its nature, even extending advocacy and representation to unaffiliated Marylanders. We are encouraged by the format of this forum that encourages Marylanders to involve themselves in civic engagement beyond just the voting process. We also wonder what it would look like to extend the same bipartisan passion to other public policy measures like at-large district voting, accessible health care and specialty care, and educational reform, particularly in rural communities in Maryland. In closing, if this commission results in a vote to consider redistricting 2026 primaries, then we would be in support, as long as it is equitable and represents all of the constituents in Maryland. Thank you for the time. We would also like to discuss, hopefully, with the commissioners, how this information will be collected, the data will be collected, and how it will be presented to the commissioners and the public beyond this forum. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. So to our guests online, we actually got through most of our speakers this evening. Ellen Ryan, Nathaniel Hardman, Danny Scheibel, Kathy Hart, Louise Weissman, Reggie Gregar, Francie Hunt, Lillian Burke. If we did not get to you and you are present still, please register for the December 5th webinar that will be hosted. You can find the link on the redistricting.maryland.gov website. You can also email testimony to grac@maryland.gov. You can also attach maps, as someone mentioned earlier, if they do want to include those with their testimony. With that, we are finished. Please register if your name was not called and you want to join us on December 5th. If you were not called tonight and would still like to be able to provide verbal testimony, please be sure to make sure that you register for that meeting. And if possible, email grac@maryland.gov to let us know you will be joining. With that, I will turn it back over to our chair from this evening, Delegate Wilson.
So I want to say thank you to everyone that was able to join us and the feedback that we received. I definitely believe that this is a democratic process, and I'm very proud of the way we're moving together in a deliberate manner. And thank you to my colleagues, Mr. Mayor and Mr. Senate President. I know we have to adjourn, Mr. Senate President. Mr. Mayor, are there any comments or input that you have?
No. No, thank you. Stay safe.
Thank you. We're adjourned till December 5th. Thank you, guys. God bless, and everyone have a good day. Meeting adjourned.